There are moments in life when everything seems fine on the outside, but inside everything collapses. The world keeps spinning, people walk, laugh, talk. But you feel something break. Not a bone, not a relationship, something far deeper. The belief that love alone was enough to be loved in return. It's like the ice beneath your feet suddenly cracks after holding for too long the weight of your illusions. There's no dramatic scene, no explosion, just a quiet realization cutting through you like a thin blade. They're not choosing you, even after everything. After yet another ignored message, after one more failed attempt to be seen, after one more reply that never comes, something inside you begins to shift. Slowly, quietly, you begin to stop. You stop writing. You stop waiting. You stop chasing. Not out of strategy, but out of exhaustion. And the most brutal part is that no one even notices, at least not at first. They keep living their life as if you never existed. And meanwhile you sink. It's a silent earthquake, invisible, but devastating. Because the more you try to be seen by someone who doesn't look at you, the more you become invisible to yourself. You lose yourself while trying to be found. You burn out while trying to shine for someone whose eyes are closed. And then something final happens. You realize you're drowning in a sea where the only one still throwing life jackets is you. What you feel isn't anger. It's not even revenge. It's a colder pain, sharper, a lucid pain, one that shows you with surgical precision everything you accepted just to avoid being abandoned. You built bridges to people who kept raising walls. You believed giving was enough to receive, but the more you gave, the more you were forgotten. The longer you stayed, the more you disappeared, until your presence became background noise, no longer felt, no longer heard, no longer appreciated. Something breaks, yes, but it's not you, it's the illusion. The illusion that love is earned through endless availability, through total presence, through self-erasure. And the more present you were, the more you were taken for granted. You became what you thought was strength. I'm always there for those I love. But that sentence wore you down, because no one ever thought to always be there for you. So you choose silence, not to punish, but to protect yourself, to rebuild. Disappearing becomes the only way to reconnect with yourself. You retreat not because you're weak, but because you're exhausted. You walk away not out of pride, but out of emotional survival. It's an act of extreme respect for your own dignity. A way of saying, enough. Now I exist too. It's not escape. It's a strategic withdrawal. You leave no trace, you ask for no explanations, you seek no confrontation. You simply stop being there. And those who took you for granted only begin to notice your absence when the silence starts to feel heavy. But by then, you're already far away, and you don't return, because you didn't leave to make them reflect. You left to stop dying slowly next to someone who no longer saw you. This is where emotional mastery begins, not in coldness, but in clarity. Not in suppressing what you feel, but in recognizing that not everything you feel deserves to live outside you. Your inner peace becomes your priority, your silence, your refuge, your absence, your message. And those who were used to your unconditional presence now feel an emptiness they no longer know how to fill. This video is for you, the one who gave everything, who believed in love even when it was one-sided, who waited for answers, for recognition, for gestures that never came. It's for you who thought persistence was loyalty and not fear, who confused hope with endurance, who called love something that was quietly consuming you. But today everything changes, because you stopped waiting, you stopped begging for attention. You started choosing yourself, not for revenge, but to come home, to stand up even with a trembling heart, to build within you a strength that doesn't need an audience, a silent strength that's felt even when it isn't seen, a strength that begins the moment you stop begging for the obvious, respect. And when they come back, and they will, it won't be because they miss you. It will be because your absence disarmed them, because of the shock of no longer recognizing you, because of the fear of losing you just when they were starting to truly see you. But it'll be too late, because you didn't stay. You walked, you hurt, you rediscovered, and now you've become something else. Not a new person, but the version of yourself you had buried just to be loved. The version that now lives without asking for permission. And you listening now, you who walked this path through silence and solitude, write it in the comments. With the strength of someone who has stopped chasing and started breathing, I don't return, I evolve. At first, you don't even notice. There's no clear, sharp, precise moment where you say, they're taking me for granted. It happens in small doses, like a drop of water that always hits the same spot. It doesn't hurt right away. You don't even feel it. But over time, it wears you down. And one day, you find yourself full of cracks. You start noticing subtle signs, a message read but left unanswered, a call they no longer return, a conversation that feels like a monologue, yours. But you keep going. You try to understand, to justify, to believe maybe they're just distracted, that maybe you're asking for too much. Instead of pulling away, you move closer, as if you could make up for their absence by giving more of yourself. You give more, write more, bend more. Like a body losing blood, you try to run faster so you won't notice the wound, but something inside you is already breaking. Without your consent, without your awareness. That's how emotional devaluation works. It's quiet, invisible, yet incredibly powerful. The more they pull away, the more you try to fill the void with gestures, attention, and words. And little by little, without realizing it, you begin trading your identity for a crumb of validation. You're reshaping yourself around someone who never once tried to shape themselves around you. And as you adjust, you empty out. You normalize the absence. You settle for the bare minimum. And you call it love. But it's not love. It's emotional dependency disguised as loyalty. It's need dressed up as devotion. It's self-sacrifice pretending to be love. It's a lopsided relationship where you're the only one keeping something alive that's already dead. You convince yourself that if you're not receiving love, it must mean you're not enough. So you try harder, again and again. You overload yourself. You force yourself to give. But every gesture thrown into silence becomes a deeper echo inside you. Because you're still feeding a bond that only feeds off you. And that's exactly where your power slips away. When you realize you're giving everything to someone who never truly asked you to be there. Still, part of you knows. You feel it. That part of you that clenches every time you wait for a message that never comes. That whisper that says, this isn't working. But you silence it. Because truth hurts. Because admitting they're using you to fill their emptiness would mean facing your own. And that void scares you. Because no one ever taught you how to fill it on your own. So you stay. You endure. You justify. You tell yourself that maybe just one more act of love will make you visible. But meanwhile you lose parts of yourself. Small fragments of your self-worth. Your light. Your joy. And them? They don't even notice. Because they've gotten used to you the way people get used to the light inside a fridge. Always there when the door opens. And no one wonders if it turns off when it closes. And when you finally try to speak up, to ask, to explain, they call you dramatic, too much, too intense. So you learn to stay quiet, to not bother, to smile even while a void inside you pulls you down. You learn to mask your sadness with a joke, to downplay what breaks you. And every time you do, you drift further from yourself. That's where the real break begins. Not between you and them, but between you and yourself. When you no longer know who you are, what you want, what brings you peace, because you've bent every part of your being around someone who never did the same, and you called it love. But it wasn't love, it was fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear that if you stopped giving, they'd walk away, when the truth is, they never really stayed. Detachment doesn't begin the day you disappear. It starts long before. It starts the day you stop recognizing yourself. When you look in the mirror and no longer know who's looking back. When you realize your desires have always been second, your emotions were always last in line, that you stopped asking, what do I want? Because every day was spent trying to make someone else happy. But then something happens, always, sooner or later. One day you wake up and you just can't do it anymore. You're not sad, you're not even angry, you're just drained, empty. You gave everything, and now there's nothing left, not even you. That's when the first spark lights up, not a fire, not a revolution. just a new way of seeing. A quiet look that says, I can't go on like this. And in that moment you understand that the problem was never them, it was you. It was in the way you sidelined yourself, in how you accepted so little, in how you silenced yourself to hear everyone else. That's when the diagnosis begins, when you stop searching outward and finally look inward. And there you find a truth that stings but heals. You were the one who stayed, even when everything inside you was screaming to leave. You didn't get lost because they ignored you. You got lost because you ignored yourself. And now, finally, you're coming back, slowly, silently, but with new eyes. Eyes that no longer seek validation, but truth. Eyes that won't sell out for a half smile. That don't light up for someone who only looks your way when it's convenient. Now they look forward to finally see who you are, when you no longer bend for anyone. There comes a time when you stop reacting, not because you've gone numb, but because you've stopped trying to be understood by people who never even tried to listen. You stop explaining. You stop justifying your presence. You stop chasing answers that won't come. You don't need to clarify anything anymore. Because now everything is clear. The ones who truly wanted you would have never let it get this far. Your silence is no longer a symptom. It's a choice, a statement, an emotional boundary drawn with surgical precision. It's a radical act of self-love, because you still exist, even when you stop explaining. You still have worth, even when you stop offering yourself. And when you truly pull back, not to get a reaction, but to stop being ignored, everything changes. Not just outside, inside too. Because strategic detachment is not weakness, it's clarity. It's the courage to face the truth and say, this no longer serves me. It's realizing that staying present where you're not respected is a slow emotional death. So you stop, not with noise, not with drama, but with cold, silent, absolute resolve. No notes left behind, no explanations asked, no begging for second chances. You vanish, not out of revenge, out of self-preservation. Those who never understood you before won't understand you now. But your absence, that they will understand. Because it starts to weigh more than your presence ever did. Because they had grown used to you. You had become invisible, background noise. But absence cuts through silence. It enters their mind like a fine crack that grows each day. And before they know it, that crack opens wide. And behind it is the void you left behind. At first they pretend nothing happened. They tell themselves it's just a phase. That you'll come back, that you just need time. But not this time. This time it's not a pause, it's a direction, a clean break from the past, a declaration of emotional independence. And those who were used to your constant availability no longer know how to face this new reality. That's when you begin to realize just how much space you occupied in their life. Not because they ever acknowledged it, but because you filled it yourself, with your energy, your presence, your consistency. And now that you're gone, that absence becomes a mirror. A harsh reflection. It forces them to look, to wonder, to truly feel, maybe for the first time, the loss of all that you gave. But it's no longer your concern, because now you're facing forward, toward yourself, toward your rebuilding. And that's the beauty of detachment. It doesn't beg, it doesn't plead, it doesn't demand. True detachment is silent. It's an internal shift no one sees, but it changes everything. It's the final cure for those who made you feel invisible, a bitter medicine that heals. As you begin to rebuild the parts of yourself you once shattered just to fit in, you start to reverse the polarity. You're no longer the one knocking on closed doors. Now you're the one closing your own, with dignity, with calm, with new awareness. You no longer wonder if you're enough for others. You start asking if they're enough to remain in your life. And they feel it. They sense it. You're no longer predictable. You don't reply instantly. You don't bend. You don't explain. You're living, truly, without filters. And living unsettles people, especially those who took you for granted. They had labeled you, boxed you in, tamed you with the certainty you'd always be there. But now you're a mystery. A calm that unnerves. A strength that doesn't scream. That's when your silence becomes power. Not because it manipulates, but because it reveals. It reveals who you were and who you're becoming. It shows that your energy now has value, that your attention is no longer limitless, that access to you is no longer automatic. And that realization is devastating for those who were used to having all of you, without giving anything back. Through detachment, you reclaim time, you reclaim space, you reclaim breath, you rediscover your boundaries. You learn that your emotional self-sufficiency is the greatest gift you can give yourself. You're no longer a satellite orbiting others. You are the center of your universe, a fixed point, a presence that no longer needs to shout to be felt. And there's no need to announce it, or post it, or explain it. Those who lost access to that version of you, they feel it, they sense it, they live it. And something shifts on the other side. A restlessness, a new anxiety, a strange feeling of loss, because you're no longer chasing, you're no longer searching, you're simply living. And living, for those who only saw you suffer to stay, is something unsettling. When you stop chasing, those who ignored you start turning around, but you don't turn back anymore. You've already turned the page, and that new page no longer includes them. At first, they pretend nothing's wrong. They don't reach out. They don't message you. They don't ask why you've disappeared. But something inside them starts to shift. A fine crack, invisible, but real. Because your silence is no longer just the pause before another reaction. It's the absence of something that was always there. And when something we took for granted stops being present, that's when the real confusion begins. You stay quiet. You pull back. You send no signals. You leave no door open. And it's precisely that emptiness that starts making noise in their mind. Where there used to be predictability, a message, a presence, a response, there's now only silence, but not just any silence, a different silence, heavy, full, unexpected, and it throws them off balance. They'll never admit it, not even to themselves, but they start thinking about you more than they ever did when you were around. They begin to wonder if you've grown tired, if you finally woke up, if you found someone who truly sees you. Your absence becomes a question, and that question too becomes an obsession, because they didn't expect this from you. They thought they had you figured out. They believed they knew who you were, and that eventually you'd come back like always. That it was just a matter of time, but not this time. And that not this time changes everything. Because now they're forced to face the truth. They no longer have access to you, and they don't know how to earn it back. They start replaying every little shared moment, rereading every ignored message, secretly revisiting your old words. And now, each word hits differently, because they know it's gone, at least not coming back in the same way. And a thought starts to form, one they were too scared to face before. Maybe I've lost them for good. And it's not just your absence that hurts them. It's the fact that you're not complaining, you're not asking questions, you're not trying to reconnect. You simply disappeared and you seem fine, or at least you look fine. And that's the real narcissistic wound. Realizing that someone can stop chasing you, turn away, and not just survive, but thrive. That's when the reaction begins. Not through grand gestures, but through obsessive thoughts, through unanswered questions, through nights spent wondering where you are, who you're with, and if you still think about them. It's not love, it's loss of control. The frustration of someone who never learned how to value until it was gone. And now that your silence is steady, consistent, untouchable, they begin to truly feel your absence as a void. But it's more than absence, it's comparison. Because while you're growing, improving, rebuilding, they feel stuck. You're moving forward, and they remain behind. And that emotional gap widens each day. And the wider it gets, the more they realize they can no longer guilt you or make you feel small. And that's when respect begins to replace arrogance, and longing starts to mix with regret. But by then, you're elsewhere, not out of revenge, but because there was nothing left to hold on to. You let go of something that deep down had been broken for a long time. And the ones who never saw you while you were there now have to face the reality that they don't even know who you've become, because your absence didn't stay empty. It turned into identity, into strength, into a quiet presence that continues to act, even without contact. And then something strange happens. They begin to imitate your old gestures. They post quotes soaked in regret. They try to spark reactions that never come. They drop subtle hints where once there were walls. But it's not enough, because you're no longer looking back. You're not seeking proof. You're not seeking payback. You're seeking peace. And that peace is what breaks them, because they can no longer invade it. Those who took you for granted never expected you to become untouchable. They never imagined you'd learn to live without their chaos. But here you are, invisible yet present, distant yet still felt, cold, yes, but grounded. And that stability, that unshakable stillness, is what destroys them, because it reveals just how unprepared they were to truly lose you. Some rebirths make no sound, there's no marked date, no big announcement. One day you just wake up, and it doesn't hurt anymore. Not like it used to. Not with that sharp, paralyzing pain. It's a different ache now. Softer, quieter, but clearer. A pain that doesn't consume you, it refines you. It shows you what you'll never go back to. And that's where it begins, the rebuilding, not to seem stronger to those who hurt you, but to finally feel whole to yourself. A Stoic rebirth comes without applause, without witnesses. No one congratulates you, in fact, most don't even notice. From the outside, you just seem calmer, less reactive, more detached. But inside, something is rewriting itself. The need for approval fades, the anxiety of being accepted dissolves, the fear of being alone turns into the freedom of being with yourself. And that changes everything. When you stop craving others' attention like oxygen, and finally start breathing on your own, when you realize your solitude isn't punishment, but an open field where you can finally plant yourself, you're no longer at the mercy of someone else's mood, no longer dependent on a message to feel alive. You no longer measure your worth by who sees you, because now you're seeing yourself. It starts small, a morning where you don't check your phone, a day where you don't reply right away, an evening where you don't apologize for choosing yourself. And those small acts become stones, stones of a new identity. Every boundary you draw, every no you say, every time you put yourself first, it's all construction, not defense, construction. And yes, at first it's scary, because you were used to being the one who understands, who waits, who gives. But now you're becoming the one who chooses, who filters, who protects their space like a freshly seeded garden. You no longer let just anyone in. Not everyone deserves your silence, let alone your voice. Your presence begins to change. You're no longer everywhere. You don't reply to everything. You're no longer an echo of someone else's need. You become a grounded presence, contained, calm, a center. And that calm, so new, so pure, is unsettling, because you're no longer predictable. You're no longer the one who's always there. Now you're the one who shows up only where there's respect. Your emotional self-sufficiency is not isolation, it's freedom. The freedom to no longer beg for affection. The freedom to stop explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand. The freedom to choose silence, not as punishment, but as protection. And it's that freedom that makes you magnetic. Invisible, perhaps, to those who only saw the surface, but radiant to those who know how to look deeper. You're not becoming hard, you're becoming whole. You're not stopping love. You're stopping the habit of sacrificing yourself and calling it love when it was only depletion. And now, as you grow, as you expand, as you become, something unexpected happens. The ones who thought you were done look at you and don't recognize you. The ones who had labeled you now can't find the words, because you're not who you used to be. You've broken the pattern. You've shattered the dependency. You've stopped chasing and started walking alone. And that version of you, the one who rises without needing approval, who chooses silence over reaction, is the version that cannot be ignored. Because it speaks a truth that needs no words. I'm okay even without you. And you are. Not perfectly, not every day, but more and more with each step. Every step away from what once wounded you is a step back home. Every choice you make for yourself is a silent declaration. I won't return to what taught me to doubt my own worth. This is your Stoic rebirth. Not to win over others, but to stop losing yourself. Not to prove something to those who didn't see you, but to finally see yourself. And when you see yourself with new eyes, something magical happens. Others begin to see what they once ignored. But now, you don't shine for them anymore. You shine for you. And that is what disarms them. There are moments that arrive too late, thoughts that only appear once everything has changed, emotions that explode when there's no one left to receive them. That's how regret begins. Not with a gesture, not with a word, but with an emptiness that can no longer be filled, with an absence that no longer answers, with a presence that no longer exists. At first, they don't miss you. They think it's a mood, a pause, a strategy to draw attention. They tell themselves they'll be back, but you don't come back. And as time passes, they begin to understand you're not silent to be chased, you're silent to breathe, to live, because you've changed. And that realization first confuses them, then hurts them, then haunts them. They start to rethink every detail, every message left unanswered, every invitation casually declined, every gesture of yours that they took for granted. And what once felt normal now hurts. Because now they know, now they see, now they understand. But you're not there anymore, not the same way, not in the same place, not with the same heart. True regret isn't loud. It's not a 3 a.m. message. It's not a rushed, "I miss you." True regret is quiet. It's the thought that sneaks in when they least expect it. It's the empty seat beside them during moments you used to share. It's that reflex to tell you something, and then remembering you're no longer there, and won't be again. They had you close and didn't see your value. Now that you're gone, every bit of your absence is an open wound. And the cruelest paradox is this: now that they want to get to know you, they no longer know who you are. Because you've become someone who can't be reached with the same keys. The keys they once used, comfort, assumption, routine, no longer open anything. And they start to understand how much you gave, how much energy, care, and presence you poured in. But now that presence is elsewhere. And it can't be bought, it can't be begged for, it can't be won back with a quick sorry. Your new calm doesn't grant discounts. Your silence offers no shortcuts. And this truth destroys them, because they no longer have the power to decide if they return to your life. Now, it's up to you. And you're no longer waiting. Your rebuilding has become their punishment. Not because you intended it, but because they can no longer enter the world you've rebuilt without them. And in that distance they ignored for too long, the deepest regret is born, the regret of having lost something that will never return the same. They try, awkwardly, a like, a casual message, an attempt to get closer without truly admitting anything. But you feel it, you see it, and inside you something no longer reacts the same. What once made you tremble now leaves you calm, because you're somewhere else. Emotionally, mentally, humanly. And that distance is no longer emptiness, it's a filter, a boundary, a new level of you. And if for even a second they think one conversation is enough to win you back, they're wrong. Because now your time has value, your energy has direction, your attention can't be begged for, it must be earned. And those who failed to see you when you were present, now face your silence as a locked door, a door they no longer know how to knock on. And this is the cruelest kind of regret, not remorse for what they did, but for what they didn't do when they had the chance. They didn't choose you, they didn't protect you, they didn't listen. And now that they want to, they no longer have access. But you didn't become cold. You became clear. You didn't become distant, you became steady. And in that steadiness, you found what they will never find again: peace. You are no longer who you were when this all began. The person who sought answers, who waited on messages, who measured their worth through someone else's gaze and is gone, but not erased, transcended, outgrown, like old skin shedding to reveal what was always underneath. You, truer, firmer, sharper. You've endured the pain of invisibility, the exhaustion of giving without receiving, the humiliation of always being one step behind. You've tasted the kind of silence that burns deeper than any word. And then at your emptiest point you chose not to go back but to begin again, without an audience, without a stage, without proofs to offer. You chose yourself, and now here you are, not seeking revenge, not waiting for apologies, but standing in full awareness that your worth doesn't depend on who sees it, but on who lives it. You no longer need to prove anything. You're not chasing anymore. You walk, and whoever wants to join you will have to match your pace. Whoever comes back now will no longer find the same version of you. They'll find boundaries. They'll find discernment. They'll find a peace that can't be disrupted by someone who once mistook your devotion for weakness. And they'll realize, with a clarity that stings, that everything you once gave so freely and is no longer available. It's not contempt. It's evolution. It's not coldness. It's protection. You haven't closed your doors to the world. You've opened them only to those who recognize your presence as rare. Because now, you're not everywhere. You're exactly where you deserve to be, where you feel, where you grow. Your silence made more noise than all the words you once screamed inside without ever saying aloud. Your absence revealed what your presence could no longer explain. And that is power. A power you don't flaunt, you don't weaponize, but a power that lives within you, like a stillness that can't be taught. A stillness born the moment you no longer need to convince anyone to feel whole. Now the game has changed. You're not the one wondering if someone is worth chasing. They're the ones wondering if it's even worth trying to come back. But you no longer leave cracks open. You leave traces. Traces of what you've learned. Traces of what you'll never tolerate again. Traces of a new identity that doesn't need to be understood, only respected. You've lost a lot, maybe too much, but not yourself. You lost time, yes. Energy, yes. Tears, undoubtedly. But all of it meant something. It launched you toward the one place you'll never retreat from again, yourself. And now that you've chosen to stop shrinking yourself to fit into others' worlds, now that you've stopped being endlessly available, endlessly present, endlessly ready, now that you've learned to say enough with your eyes, your body, your actions, you've finally stopped begging for what you now generate on your own, respect. Those who misunderstood you, who took you for granted, who looked at you but never saw you, now have to face a simple but devastating truth. They can no longer reach you the same way. Not because you've become unreachable, but because you've become irreversible. You don't return to the places that broke you. You don't return to where you were ignored. You don't return to where you had to ask for permission to be loved, because now you know those who truly deserve you will never make you question your place. So stay right there, in that full silence, in that speaking absence, in that calm that unsettles, because that calm is your armor. It's your new name, it's your new home, and anyone who comes back will have to approach gently. But you now, you no longer open the door for those who knock too late.